I apologize, I don't speak Spanish, not yet, but I will work on that. And thank you for welcoming me here. This is one of the visits I am paying to all capital cities of the... do you mind if I...
sorry.
No,
I think no.
Okay, sorry, because otherwise I listen my voice in Spanish, and that's. So I was saying this is a pleasure for me being here. This is actually the first visit to one of the member states of the south of Europe, so you can imagine how important it is to me, also personally. It's a round of visits that I'm doing to share with all our member states the priorities, the points of view on what we have to do as European Union when it comes to foreign policy and security. As I'm convinced that we do share common interests and that we have to work on making them emerge and work on our priorities from the very beginning with a full sense of ownership. And I know that in Madrid I will find, as I have found in these months, always not only support but also always a European attitude when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to security, when it comes to defense. And I would always like to thank the Spanish government and the Spanish people for thinking European when it comes to the rest of the world and our region. So it is a pleasure being here. But it is, as you mentioned, a very sad and difficult time for my visit. We mentioned in the first moments of our meeting today, but we're continuing afterwards, we mentioned two dramatic things happened in the last days. The attack in Copenhagen, following the ones in Paris a little bit more than 1 month ago. And I associate myself to the condolences that you have expressed, as well as the tragic events in Libya. Now, we have spent months, I remember having done that also in my previous capacity, even this building here. We spent months saying that we had to pay more attention to Libya because this was going to be the next big crisis to explode, and it would have done it next to our borders, next to our shores. And unfortunately, I have to say that we were dramatically right. What we are seeing today, in these days in Libya, is a double threat. It's a threat of a country that is breaking apart, and of a country where Daesh is taking power and infiltrating in a relevant way. Now, as you mentioned, I will meet Bernardino León later today here in Madrid. We have discussed in these days. I've talked yesterday with John Kerry and with the Egyptian Foreign Minister, Shukri, as well as with other ministers of the European Union, but also of the region. With the Egyptian Foreign Minister and with John Kerry, we will meet in Washington later in this week to define possibilities of action when it comes to the Libyan crisis. I will be obviously working with the European ministers on the contacts that I'm having in these days when it comes to Libya. It is clear that it is a complex situation, a very dangerous situation. So far, it has been so mainly for the migration routes. Now, obviously, there is another dimension that should push all the sides inside Libya to realize that Daesh is a threat to the entire country, to all the Libyans, and that would require a joint action to face the threat in Libya. And I hope we will have signs of this wisdom in the next days, even if the recent news of these last moments do not go in this direction. We discussed, and we're going to discuss even more, Ukraine. I'm sure there will be some questions about that, so I will be probably more brief on that. But I would say that not only the agreement that was reached last week in Minsk was a positive step, but also the first steps of the implementation, the entry into force and the ceasefire, even if very fragile, even if with many limits, still is the only option for hope of a solution of the conflict that we have. And so we are, as European Union, working in these days, day and night, in Kiev, with our people that are there, to support the OSCE in the monitoring and in the implementation of the agreement on the ground. We are providing to the OSCE support in concrete terms, technical and financial, and we see our role in these days as critical, as crucial, not just to sit and wait to see if the agreement holds, but to make all that we can to make the implementation happen and work. One of the issues that we have discussed is the Mediterranean at large, being it the crisis in Syria and the strategy we have against Daesh, being it the Middle East peace process. That is something on which I know Spain is extremely active, and I was happy to listen of the reports of the last trip you had and the visits and the meetings you had there. And you know that it is for me an issue to which I even personally attach very much importance. And I was happy to convene the quartet exactly 1 week ago in Munich to work on an international framework, on a regional framework for relaunching the peace talks, hopefully in some weeks. You mentioned, rightly so, very much rightly so, the work on Latin America. This is something where I count on the Spanish partnership and friendship to support a relaunch of the relations between the European Union and Latin America and the Caribbean. I was strongly wanting to go to the CELAC summit in Costa Rica. I was there some weeks ago. I think it was an extremely important sign of attention to the region in my first months of mandate. And we can work hand in hand, not only to support the peace process in Colombia, not only to accompany new developments in Cuba, but also to relaunch a strategic partnership, I would say, between the two regions. Latin America shares so much of values, identities, multilateralism with Europe, and I'm sure that the European Union will be able to count on the support, help of Spain to make sure that this relaunch will happen and will be strong and effective already in the coming months. We're going to have an EU-CELAC summit in June, and I am personally dedicated to make of this not just a summit, but a strategic step in strengthening and deepening our relation with Latin America. It's a place of the world that is relatively quiet. This is not a reason not to focus there. On the contrary, it's an investment we have to make, a political investment we have to make, even if not everything is easy. But Europe is a natural partner and interlocutor for that region. Let me conclude on a note of cooperation, of strong cooperation. All of this that I mentioned, that we mentioned today, and much more, needs European Union not only to act as one, but also to act as one as much as possible in the multilateral fora that we have. And let me particularly appreciate the attitude of Spain when entering the Security Council, saying very clearly that the intention is to use this seat as a European seat. And this is not just words, but this is also practice. I can thank you for, and I can appreciate very much, not only me, but all our European friends, because this gives us a big opportunity to coordinate our policies, to make them more effective when it comes to the international scene. And there is not one single crisis where this is not needed. And being it on Ukraine, being it on Libya, being it on counter-terrorism, being it on all the developments we have in front of us, I know that we can count on working together strongly in a very much open and coordinated way to make sure that not only from the European side but also on a multilateral level and the UN level the European voice is heard and counts for finding solutions. I thank you very much for this, and I'm looking forward to your questions and for our discussion and for a wonderful, even if very busy, but wonderful program that is here for me today in Madrid. I think this is a very good example of how not only in Spain but also in general in the south of Europe we're definitely not lazy and not slow.
Con Kerry, con el ministro de Exteriores egipcio y con distintas personalidades en relación con Libia para explorar posibilidades de acción. Yo le quiero preguntar directamente si explorarán, si es posible que arbitren alguna intervención de carácter militar. Saber cuál sería la postura de la Unión Europea y si cree que esto es posible y si es lo conveniente dada la gravedad que ha alcanzado la posición de Daesh en Libia. Quería preguntarle de paso al ministro español cuál sería la postura del gobierno español en este caso. Gracias.
I've been fighting hard, and the minister here can testify it, in the last 3 months to keep Libya, to put Libya actually, on the agenda of our Foreign Affairs Councils, even in times where other crises were asking for attention. And I've always said that we cannot and we should not say that one crisis can shadow the other, because we do not have, in these difficult times, the luxury of choosing which crisis needs more attention from our side. We need to tackle them all. And actually, out of 5, I think, Foreign Affairs Councils that we've had in these 3 months, Libya was on the agenda on 3 of them. And the last time it was exactly 1 week ago. Last Monday, more or less at this time of the day, the ministers were discussing the situation in Libya, were adopting conclusions on how the European Union would support a different perspective for Libya, also taking measures, active, concrete measures from the European Union side on Libya. And in that conclusions you will find, first of all, the reference to the UN framework and the work of the UN Special Envoy, Bernardino Leon, that I would like to take the opportunity to thank for his endless and tireless work in these months, difficult work in these months, a work that is not finished yet. So the reference to the framework of the United Nations, of the work of the Special Envoy, and of the decisions of the Security Council. And here I turn back to Spain. But one of the first things we will discuss, obviously, in Washington later this week with John Kerry, with Shukri, with others that will be there, will be what kind of discussion, what kind of initiative within the UN system, within the UN framework, is more needed and is more effective to face the threat of Daesh in Libya. When it comes to the direct question, I would say that it is not for today to consider any contribution to the European Union, of the European Union, to any sort of military action. It is still one of the possibilities, the support that the European Union could give should the UN decide of the need or the opportunity or the possibility of having some sort of support that I would link in any case to a process that has to be Libyan-led. We need to discuss this with the Libyans, and here I attach a lot of importance to the discussion I will have with Bernardino Leon tonight, and also with the minister here, on the possibilities still of a dialogue in Libya to get to a result, because again I would underline this: Daesh is a threat to all Libyans, not to one side in Libya, to all Libyans, and needs to be faced by all Libyans together. The second need we have is to discuss this with the region, to the regional actors, starting from the countries that are around Libya, not only Egypt. I would also mention Tunisia. I was in Tunisia just Friday discussing this with the President, with the Prime Minister, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also Algeria. We have to make sure that the region in itself is in full ownership of whatever steps is taken. And obviously, we will discuss this in the European Union again after these talks. I'm having in these hours consultations and telephone calls with most of the ministers and also some prime ministers of the European Union, obviously, to represent the different points of view of our member states in these talks. But I would stress again, what we need is, first of all, a UN framework, a Libyan ownership, hopefully and possibly an all-Libyan ownership, and a regional contest to frame any step that we might take.
Muchas gracias. Yo quiero puntualizar algunas cosas. Es decir, el Gobierno ha considerado siempre la situación en Libia extraordinariamente grave. La disputa entre Tobruk y Trípoli, para simplificar, está abriendo espacios muy importantes a Daesh y a las distintas franquicias de Al-Qaeda, que se han cobrado las 21 víctimas que hemos visto estos días. El deterioro de Libia puede tener un impacto considerable a nivel regional, no solo en los países que ha citado la alta representante, Túnez y Egipto, por razones obvias, sino en todo el Sahel. Quiero recordar que España está implicada en Mali y Centroáfrica porque ha tomado la amenaza terrorista en el Sahel como una amenaza extraordinariamente seria y preocupante para nuestros intereses nacionales. Tercer punto, que la solución tiene que ser una solución, como ha dicho Federica, entre los libios. Eso es lo que está haciendo el alto representante en Ginebra en cada mes, pero que tiene que ser apadrinada e impulsada por los actores que tienen impacto en la región. Quiero recordar que en la reunión que tuvimos en Londres, dos de los países no accedieron a sentarse porque había otros dos sentados. Es decir, Emiratos y Arabia decidieron no sentarse porque estaban en la sala de reuniones Turquía y Qatar. Por tanto, tenemos que enfocar esto con un criterio regional. Cuarto, nosotros apoyamos los esfuerzos del alta representante y de Bernardino León para llegar a un diálogo entre los libios. Es muy importante que esa sea la solución, porque solo si llegamos a una solución que madure, que fructifique en un gobierno de unidad nacional, habrá un sujeto con el que entenderse. Respecto a la decisión del gobierno español, cuando se plantee, si se plantea una intervención militar, yo coincido con Federica, hoy no es el día de plantearse ese tema. La discusión se planteará probablemente en muchos de los foros en los que estamos antes de que España tenga que tomar una decisión. Se discutirá sin duda en el Consejo de Asuntos Exteriores de la Unión Europea, eventualmente en el Consejo Europeo y probablemente también en el Consejo de Seguridad. Cuando llegue el momento, habrá llegado el día de tomar una decisión que desde luego será tomada en estrecha colaboración, cooperación e información recíproca con nuestros socios.
La iniciativa que han hablado, hispano-italiana, que es muy antigua, si la van a poner en marcha, ¿tienen ya alguna precisión sobre cuándo se puede poner en marcha para la protección de las minorías religiosas? Y al ministro de Asuntos Exteriores español quisiera preguntarle, pues se han publicado algunas informaciones en los últimos días en relación con la actitud del gobierno de Venezuela, primero convocando a las empresas españolas una cierta amenaza para que presionen a los medios de comunicación para que dejen de criticar a Podemos y al gobierno de Venezuela, y también por la presencia de un miembro de ETA en Venezuela. ¿Qué le parece al gobierno estas informaciones? Si tiene alguna opinión y si van a tomar alguna medida de algún tipo.
If I understood it right, because my understanding of Spanish is good, but sometimes you go fast, about the support to the initiatives to the protection of the Christians. Was that correct? Yes, there is an attention, obviously, and an action of the European Union on the European Union side. I've shared these views recently with the European Parliament, also where this is an issue that is extremely important and sensitive to many of the members of the European Parliament of different nationalities. So I would say that this is an issue that is not only at the heart and in the minds of many member states, but also of the European citizens as such. The approach of the European Union is obviously to protect and to work to protect all minorities everywhere. But it is also clear very much that there is a specific element, especially in certain parts of the world, against Christians. I have personally had the chance of meeting Christian communities when I was visiting Iraq just the day before Christmas in Erbil with the communities there. And on this, as well as on the protection of other minorities in difficult parts of the world, the European Union is doing its best. It's never enough. It's never enough. Protection of minorities, not only outside but also inside of Europe, is never enough what we do. And we, I think, are going to strengthen even more also the internal dimension of our protection of minorities after what happened recently in Copenhagen and Paris. We have a risk of anti-Semitism, very clear and very spread. We also might risk the challenge of Islamophobia in our societies. So there is a specificity, but we have to make it very clear that it is not a clash of civilization, but as the Minister was rightly pointing out, it's an alliance of civilization, it's a dialogue of civilization that is needed to make sure that the best protection is guaranteed to all minorities in European Union and, most of all, outside of the European Union.
Gracias. No tengo mucho que añadir a la primera pregunta. Fue una iniciativa que se tomó hace algún tiempo por los dos ministerios italiano y español, que visto los acontecimientos, la desaparición prácticamente de los cristianos en Mosul y de lo que está ocurriendo en Nigeria y de lo que está ocurriendo en Libia, cobra una especial importancia y habrá que buscar la fórmula para que eso avance. Respecto al otro tema, el tema de Venezuela, que a su vez tiene dos partes, el tema de las empresas y el tema de Juana Chaos, voy a distinguirlos. El Gobierno tuvo conocimiento de la convocatoria urgente a las empresas españolas a través de las propias empresas españolas. La reunión se celebró el día 12 y el día 13 el embajador de España en Caracas se reunió inmediatamente con los representantes de estas empresas y estuvo en contacto con el vicecanciller venezolano Calixto Ortega. El Ministerio en Madrid ha estado también en contacto permanente con las empresas que asistieron a aquella reunión. Hoy la última reunión la ha tenido el secretario de Estado para Iberoamérica y Cooperación y el director general de Relaciones Internacionales, y estamos siguiendo la situación, como ustedes se pueden imaginar, con extremo cuidado. Acabo de tener una conversación con el embajador hace aproximadamente una hora, con el embajador de España en Caracas, y no ha habido novedades importantes. Sobre esto, lo único que quiero decir son puntos muy claros. Lo primero que quiero decir es que en un Estado democrático y de derecho, como el que por fortuna tenemos en España, la libertad de opinión y de prensa son principios absolutamente irrenunciables y base de nuestra convivencia. En segundo lugar, que, como he dicho, estamos en contacto permanente con las empresas y evaluando al minuto la situación. Y en tercer lugar, que el Gobierno español tiene el deber y el derecho de defender a sus empresas contra medidas arbitrarias y contrarias a derecho. Existe un acuerdo de protección de inversiones entre Venezuela y España, y contaremos, como hemos contado siempre, en otros casos que ustedes recuerdan perfectamente, con el apoyo de las distintas instituciones de la Unión Europea. Respecto a la situación de Juana Chaos, quiero confirmar que existe una orden de busca y captura del Juzgado Central de Instrucción número 6 de la Audiencia Nacional contra el señor de Juana por un delito de enaltecimiento del terrorismo, el artículo 578 del Código Penal. De acuerdo con las informaciones que se nos han facilitado informalmente todavía por el juzgado, la orden de busca y captura sigue vigente. Una vez localizado de Juana en Venezuela, corresponde al juez Velasco de la Audiencia Nacional la iniciativa para cursar la petición de extradición. La petición se dirige al Ministerio de Justicia, quien la eleva al Gobierno, el cual acordará su transmisión por vía diplomática por este Ministerio a las autoridades venezolanas. Puntualizar que a estos efectos que existe un tratado bilateral de extradición suscrito en Caracas el 4 de enero de 1990 entre España y Venezuela.